Namaste. Welcome to day 3, aligning with daily natural rhythms. So wonderful job so far. You've done most of the hard work. You've set up your sacred space and you've created a room for yourself to begin your practice. And yesterday you went through all of the trouble of figuring out what's the perfect right practice for you, answering all those heart questions. So today is mostly about absorbing a new way of looking at the world and understanding how energy moves throughout the day and how that influences us in our practices. So I want you to go ahead and, if you haven't already, access the document that's on the page where you found this video, or it's in the video description box. Please print out this resource and have it available to you to have as a frame of reference while you're watching the video. It'll make everything much more understandable and easy to follow. So if you don't have access to a printer, even better, you can recreate the information by writing it in a journal or noting it down in a way that makes sense to you. As always, you can enhance the benefit of investing all of your time and energy in learning these things by engaging our community on Facebook. Enjoy the lesson, and I'll see you tomorrow. Take care. Today, we're talking all about when to do our practice. So far in lesson 1, we talked about where to do our practice, setting up our sacred space. And yesterday in day 2, we talked about the what, the who, the how, and the why. Today we're using the framework of Ayurveda to look at how the rhythms of nature change and progress throughout the day and how that affects us on an energetic level. So before we get started, let's center in with a grounding practice. So please, if you would, find yourself in a seated position in your sacred space, ready to spend just a few minutes coming into this infinite self. Close the eyes, keep the back straight, relax the shoulders down, maybe draw the crown of the head up towards the ceiling, relaxing in the hips, feeling this long line of energy all the way from the base of the spine to the crown of the head. And then side to side as well, so spreading wide across the collarbones, creating an expansive experience in the body. Allowing the hands to rest, palm face up, either one on each knee or together at the center of the lap. Consciously releasing any tension that you may be holding in your face, your eyes and cheeks, in your jaw, in your scalp. Beginning to bring your awareness to the movement of your breath, letting go attachments to thoughts and feelings, removing our attention from whatever it is that we're worried about today, that we're working on, whatever's ahead for us, whatever came before. And committing for the next few minutes to our decision to set up and keep up a restorative self-practice. And honoring this decision by taking action. Aligning energetically the state of wholeness. Allowing the breath to travel wherever it needs to go in the body. With each inhale, creating space. With each inhale, creating space. With each exhale, relaxing into that space. Releasing any discomfort that may be held in the body. Tapping into our ability to simply witness whatever's going on inside, without coming to any conclusions about what it is or what's happening, just witnessing, just observing, without getting the mind involved. Find your breath in the body. Listen to how it's moving today. And then we shift our attention to the heart space, to the center of the chest. At first, beginning to be aware of how the breath is moving there. And allowing ourselves to melt into the feeling of coming home in the heart. Fully accepting the whole of who we are, simply by witnessing everything that goes on here. So we're not judging or finding words to describe what's happening or what we're noticing. Simply being present with our experience of our inner self. Practicing consciousness of our essence. Should you notice any tension being held in the mind or the body, allow yourself to relax it with an exhale. Invite more space into it with an inhale. And then bring your attention back to the center of the chest. In this watchfulness, there's nothing to do or accomplish. Everything is just awareness. If your mind is wandering, come back to tracing the movement of the breath with a focus in the heart space. Inhaling, knowing you're inhaling, and exhaling, watching the exhale. Inhaling, watching the inhale, and exhaling, knowing you're exhaling. We'll take one more minute here. And then sealing our practice by bringing our hands to the heart center, taking a moment to pause in gratitude. First, for the teachers who came before us. For one another. And for our own time and energy. When you're ready, you can release the hands and open the eyes. So thanks for starting with this practice with me today. I can't stress enough how important it is to begin our restorative self-practice with an experience of being grounded. If we're not first centered in the true self or the heart, then it's very hard for us to benefit from the work that we do in our self-practice, no matter what it is, whatever form it's taking for you. So I hope that this 5 days of experience of centering in helps to get you started. And I encourage you to keep up this habit as you continue to explore your own self-practice in your own time. So today we're talking all about an Ayurvedic perspective of when to do our practice, how the rhythms of nature move throughout the day, and how we can align with them and why it's important. So aligning with the daily rhythms of nature. First, it's natural, it's evolving, it's cyclical, it's seasonal, it's always changing, right? Nature has this beautiful design of being in constant evolution, growing and shifting, but in a rhythmic way. So the rhythm is a pattern and a timing. It's a choice that we get to make to align with it. So when we're following a rhythm, we have to play the beat in the right time. And then it's daily, it's consistent, and it's persistent. So even if we're not getting the rhythm right at first, we can pause and wait for the time for the music to come back, for us to come back into alignment with the music to then play our beat in the right time. So let's talk about how these rhythms manifest themselves from an Ayurvedic perspective. In Ayurveda, the understanding is that all of the universe is made up of 5 elements, and these 5 elements combined into different combinations, and they're called doshas. So these doshas exist within our body, but they also exist in the outside world and in the way that the elements combine and change throughout the day. There's 3 doshas. There's vata, pitta, and kapha. So vata is a combination of air and space. It's this wide open, spacious experience of spiritual connection. And this is the time of day of very early in the morning when there's this very thin barrier between the physical and the non-physical world. This is the time of morning where many times we wake up, maybe we have to use the restroom, maybe we have to evacuate the bowels, right? Make room in the body, make space. Many times we have very vivid dreams or some more spiritual connection. And this is historically the time of day that's always been recommended for doing a meditation practice. So waking up early in the morning before the sun even rises and entering into this spacious time of day. This Vata time is repeated also in the afternoon. So there'll be this upward arc and then it'll be mirrored with all three doshas. We'll talk about that in a minute. So in the morning, from 2 o'clock until 6 o'clock is this Vata time. Air and space, wide openness, this spiritual connection. And then once the sun starts to rise, it introduces the earth element. Earth and water combine to create kapha. Kapha is the element of building material, so a very physical element. And this is the element between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. when the power of the sun is growing in the sky and it's waking up the earth. New sights and smells and sounds are arising. And it's this very physical, this very tactile engagement that we begin to feel with our environment. So the earth around us is waking up, and then our consciousness within us is also waking up. So this is the best time of day to do some physical practice, right? To start to get our blood moving, to engage all the systems of our body together, and to really enter into our body. This kapha time is reflected again in the afternoon, and we'll talk about how that manifests just in a minute. And then once the sun is at its highest peak during the day, this is the pitta time. This is the time of air and fire, where the sun is at the top of the sky, it's at its height, it's the warmest time of the day, and it's also the most energetically powerful time of the day. So this is between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. This is the time of pitta. Pitta is this ability for us to transform. Inside the body, it's reflected as something called Agni, or digestive fire, and outside of the body, its greatest representation is the sun. So during the pitta hours, when the sun is at its peak, this is really the time for us to focus on getting the bulk of our hard work done for the day. So it could be some creative project or some sort of work where you're transforming elements, right? Where you're starting with some ideas or some ingredients, and then you're ending up with something that looks totally different. So this really transformational process. And between 10 and 2 is the ideal time for us to be working on these transformational type of energies. Then the doshas repeat again. So after we've gone through this arc of Vata in the morning, this more spiritual aspect between 2 and 6, and then transitioning into a physical kapha between 6 and 10, and then between 10 and 2 being in the fiery pitta of transformation, then the cycle repeats again. So beginning at 2 o'clock, this is when the sun begins to fall in the sky. We get this descending arc of energy, both in the external world and then mirrored also within as well. So once the sun begins to descend in the sky, we enter into Vata once more. So the Vata in the afternoon hours is really a time of bringing back our restorative spiritual practice. So between 2 and 6 p.m. is this time of bringing down our energy, de-escalating from this heightened involvement of work and entering back into this very spacious time of being able to contact with the spiritual world. So in the daytime, it's a little less profound than it is in the early morning because the influence of the sun is continuing to bring so much life and growth and newness and activity. It's not so quiet as it was in the beginning of the morning, but this is still a time where we can enter into a spiritual restorative practice, work on bringing our energy down. So then once we get to 6 p.m., the dosha enters into kapha once more. So between 6 p.m. and 10 p.m. is this more physical time of maybe entering into restorative physical practice. So a rejuvenative yoga practice or a long walk out in nature or somehow engaging the body in this downward arc of energy, in this downward movement of the sun in our consciousness, in our body. In the morning, the kapha is a time of really raising our energy and greeting the day. And then in the evening time between 6 and 10, understandably, it's a time where we're really bringing our physical energy down and preparing ourselves for the nighttime hours, the restorative detoxification of night. So Pitta is at its height in the nighttime between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. And this crux of the evening time where the sun is in its power, but in its mirror image. So we have this transformative work going on in our sleeping time, but it's reflected in our ability to be detoxifying the body. So we're doing strong work. The liver's processing toxins that are built up throughout the body and creating this package to release in the morning. The brain is filtering through heavy metals and different toxins that have built up there. And the whole body is entering into its rest and digest mode of self-healing and rejuvenation. So this happens automatically when we're entering into a deep sleep. And the best way that we can set this up for ourselves is to be fully ready for bed and able to be entering sleep at the 10 p.m. hour. If we're not already sleeping by 10 p.m., we're likely to get this second wind you may have experienced many times, where we're staying up late and then suddenly we feel like we have all this energy because the pitta fire is active in the body at that time. So pitta is doing this work of transformation between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. So what does this mean for your practice? What does this look like for the habit and the method that you chose yesterday? So I want you to take a moment and think back, what was the practice that you chose for yourself? And what were the 1 or 2 ways that you found to support yourself, the people that you're going to be able to connect with to grow in this habit? So what's the habit and which part of the day does it fit into? Is it more of this spacious and airy vata type of practice? Maybe it's breath work or meditation or some sort of stillness where you're doing some spiritual practice either early in the morning, before the day gets started, or using the downward arc of energy in the early afternoon between 2 and 6. Or is your practice more of a kapha type of practice, so a more physical and building type of practice where you're engaging your body. Either in the morning you have this upward arc of awakening your body and moving into a physical experience, or in the afternoon of bringing down your energy and coming into a more restorative experience of your physical faculties. And then the third option is that your practice is a pitta practice. So a pitta practice is all about transformation. It's about change. It's about some sort of revolution in your body, where you're engaging with the height of your energetic power and you're engaging in some digestion or change of information. So maybe you're doing some study or work where you're taking information and then you're integrating it into the body. You're digesting the information and then adding it to your tissues. You're really transforming the raw ingredients and then it becomes something else, either within you or without you. Or maybe it's a more creative self-practice where you have a specific outcome that's coming out of the work that you're doing in your habit. So this is a new way of thinking about the flow of the day and how energy changes and converts through different time periods. So I would encourage you to print out the guide that we've created for you and post it somewhere where you'll see it multiple times a day. I remember when I was first learning this framework, it was so new to me that I had to put it in some place that I would see multiple times during the day. So I ended up putting it on my fridge so that every time I passed by, I would check in and see, okay, what's the time of day now? What are the activities that my external environment is supporting me in doing? And what is it that I'm busy in now? And just checking myself regularly and seeing what's the project that I'm working on and is it in alignment with the rhythm that's being played by my external world? So it's just coming back to this understanding that if it's the right time for our rhythm and our beat, so it's very easy for us to play along. And if we're trying to play some beat in the wrong time, then it all becomes disjointed. And sometimes we have to take a pause and wait for the day to come back around to this beat for us in order to play it. Because if I try and play my beat of doing my hard work at the end of the day or at the beginning of the day when I should be focused on a more interior practice, then my work won't be as fruitful. Or if I'm trying to do my spiritual practice in the middle of the day where it's noisiest and energies are most active, I'll get a totally different result than if I wait for that proper time to play the rhythm to come back around. So now is the time for us to take a break, to take a look at the resource that's been given to you, and to make a decision about what's the best time of day for you to be doing your practice. So you may not be entirely certain, and I really encourage you to reach out to the Facebook group for feedback, suggestions, and you're certainly welcome to email me as well with any questions or clarifications that you want about the best time to do your practice. But take at least 10 or 15 minutes and really enjoy getting to know this new frame of reference and play around with fitting in your daily schedule into this new rhythm. Good luck, and I will see you tomorrow. Thank you for your time and attention. Namaste.
Sha